About 6 or 7 years ago, I had a life change event where I needed to sell all my belongings and put everything else in storage, and I didn't want to pay storage fees. So some friends of mine lived down the street. They said if I built a cabin that looked nice enough that I could put it in their yard, so I had to paint it to match their house. And so I built a 12 by 16 shed on 4 by 6 skids and stored all my stuff in it. I ended up getting married about 3 years ago to my beautiful wife, Marcel, and her and I built a house, and we love our house. But we ended up using it for nightly rentals in the summertime in Seward here, which is a pretty popular thing. We were blown away by how the nightly rental market is here. So we ended up renting our house out for the summer, and so we needed a place to stay when we would come here on the weekends to work on the property. And then we have our little tiny house here, so now we stay in the house every summer when we rent out our house for nightly rentals. And so we don't necessarily live tiny all year, but it is really nice to live tiny part of the year, because before we move back in here every year, we get to go through all of our stuff, decide all the stuff that we haven't really touched for the year, get rid of a bunch of clothes that we haven't worn all year, and move into our little house. My name is Rodney Rimmick, and this is my tiny house in Seward, Alaska, right outside of Seward, about mile 7, so in a subdivision called Cuesta Woods. I'd like to show you around. Come check it out. Well, this is it. We'll see the outside in a little while, but it's a 12 by 16 with a loft that you'll see. Originally built as a shed at my friend's house, and we moved it with a loader over here about 4 or 5 years ago when I needed a place to live when I rented the house out for the summer. So I turned the shed into this house, and yeah, it's pretty small, but it has everything we need. This is the living room area. I know it's a tiny house, but I don't like tiny TVs, so I got a 42-inch TV and a nice little 2-seat recliner that I can sit down, kind of eat, and watch TV. Eventually, I think I'm going to make one of the fold-down tables that I see a lot of people making in their small houses. As I said, it's 12 by 16, so it's pretty small, so it doesn't take too much to heat. So I just have a little electric heater. You know, the light comes on, makes it look like a fire, and it does well. I mean, up here in Alaska, it gets, below freezing all the time, all the winter. So about the coldest we get is 0 for a week or two, and it does pretty good. Have to leave it on overnight, but yeah. So this is a living room area, and as you can see, there's some art. My wife paints pictures. Her Facebook is Artworks by Marcel, so you can check those out. She does a lot of topical or topographic charts, I think they're called, or nautical charts. So as you can see throughout the house, we ended up going with this pine tongue and groove, and a lot of it was just because I knew I was going to move it from down the street when I was done building it, and I didn't want to do sheetrock where I knew something would crack, all the seams would crack. So we went ahead and did the pine tongue groove. It costs a little more, but I would never do anything but it. It is awesome. 3 years later, smells like pine every time you come in. Everybody comments on it. And then I didn't want to just put wood trim on wood walls, so we ended up getting this some rope line, trying to make a little nautical look. So I really like the way it came out. So this is the other side of the living room, and at first we didn't really know what to do with it. We just kind of threw our suitcases or my piles of clothes, and then we ended up putting a bench, and then my wife had an idea to put the coat hanger up there. So it's really very, very functional, and for my wife and I, it's perfect size. Obviously, I've got a lot more clothes right now because she hasn't put her stuff in here yet for the summer, but it's probably the perfect size for 2 people. And one thing about living in a tiny house, every so often you get to go through all your stuff. So you get to go through your clothes and get out what you don't use, and try to keep what you do use. And yes, I do use this shirt sometimes, so I will be keeping it. But yeah, I wouldn't change much about this space at all, other than I wish there was a way to nicely kind of cover it up. But then again, it's not like I really have that many guests over here, so it's just my wife and I that see it. So, and I don't know if you can see the shelf there. As I said, we built it as a shed, and so I just put a shelf up here to put some Rubbermaids and things on it. Now that I've turned it into a house, it is the one spot that's kind of a weird area in the house, in that I don't really know what to do with it. I don't really want to put anything up there because it's hard to get to. Well, going the other direction into the kitchen and bathroom area, and the ladder up to the loft. The ladder is a bit steep, but I looked at all the different ways that people are doing the ladders and the pull downs, the attic ladders and different things, and we just went with this, and it's very sturdy. It is steep, so I tell Marcel we go down it really slow in the morning, especially when you wake up and you're kind of not all there. You just want to make sure and go down it really slow in the morning. But other than that, it's steep, but it works great. Very sturdy, like I said, and it takes up a lot less space just being that steep. This is our kitchen area, and again, it's tiny, but it has everything a normal kitchen would have. A 4-burner stove, electric. It's the smaller stove. I think it's 24 inches. And smaller than the standard stove, but it is a 4-burner electric stove. Obviously got the microwave with the vent underneath all plumbed in, so whenever time you cook, it vents outside. A full-size sink and Keurig, toaster, all that good stuff. And then not quite a full-size refrigerator, but definitely not a mini. I think it's 32 inches wide, something like that. It is a weird shape. I had this fridge, and so I made the space for it. Now I'd like to get a nicer fridge, but it's really hard to find that exact size. So I'm sure when you guys are deciding which fridge to use, they have the really tiny ones or the standards, and everything in the middle is such a weird shape. It's hard to replace. But you can see that the cabinets don't match. That's because I'm on a low budget, and some people in town were selling these cabinets from a remodel they did. I think I got them for 50 bucks. And then in the back of Lowe's and Home Depot, you can always get the dinged, and so both of these cabinets were missing a hinge, and so they were all discounted, so I fixed those, but obviously they don't match. And then just a standard Lowe's countertop that you can get, pre-made, and I really like it. It's very, very functional. Like I say, here's that hot water heater I was talking about, or the water heater. You don't need to heat hot water. 17 gallons, I think. It's enough for 2 short showers or 1 long shower, and it takes about 30 minutes to heat back up. So very functional, like I say. And you can see on the floor, we put the, before we did anything, we put this vinyl down on the whole area, the whole cabin, and then I just got a remnant for the living room because I liked carpet more, but if we ever pull it up, it would just be all this underneath. It kind of just helps seal it and insulate it as well. So the bathroom is kind of small. You can hear the fan come on anytime the light's on. It vents because I don't want all the humidity to get in the house, but it is kind of a small bathroom. I believe it's 4 by 6. Yeah, 4 by 6. So it's got a couple of shelves behind the door that I don't think you'll be able to get to. Maybe you can see them, and then a mirror, a medicine cabinet with a mirror and a toilet. And then I don't like little showers, so I didn't get a full size, but I got the mid size, so you don't feel very cramped. And I would never get that small, tiny shower that they have that you can't move. So it's really nice. As again, functional. 2 people can shower in it, but it works great for what we use. And just have to wash, you use the sink out in the kitchen to wash your hands when you're done. So that's the only thing it's missing, is a sink in here. And I wouldn't change anything about the bathroom at all. As you can see, they're kind of steep, but they work great. I'm 230 maybe on a good day, probably 240, and they've been holding up for 3 years. Well, I do have a tiny house, but I don't like tiny beds. So we got a California King up here, about the biggest bed you can buy. I think that the loft is half, which would be 8 by 12. So plenty of room, whatever you need up here. Bed, little nightstand, little fan. I do have a little TV there because I like to watch the news when I go to bed, but I would like it to be taller where I could stand up, but I've never hit my head. You just crawl around up here. I love the bedroom. Again, the pine is so nice up here when you're laying in bed. It's just everything is pine, and I love it, and my wife loves it. So yeah. So at first we just had the tiny house. We didn't have the porch on here, and I found that we kept bringing dirt and mud inside. So we built this little 6-foot by the width 12 deck, and obviously put this clear sun tuff up. And I would never have a deck in Alaska or anywhere that did not have clear roofing from now on, because oftentimes the temperature is fine, but it's raining, and so I will sit out here when it's pouring rain and it's beautiful. So lets all the light in, obviously doesn't let the rain in. So yeah, we love the porch, love hanging out here. Cool. Definitely would never have a tiny house without a porch on it. I love just getting into gardening this year, so we put some flower beds down at the main house, and then we just have our little hanging plants. We got some mint here. Hopefully in another couple weeks I can pick some mint to put in the tea when I make some sun tea. And yeah, we just put a little table out here last year so that we could enjoy dinner and a glass of wine in the evening. Ended up putting stairs on both sides because people kept parking on either side, and so we just put a stairwell on each side so that we can make it up. Obviously got a barbecue here for the summertime, and we got a couple extra little tree trimmings from the yard, so we have a little bonfire at night sometimes when we're enjoying our wine. And you can see the outside is just the T111, and then metal roofing on the top, and the metal roofing is all used. It was light blue and green and brown, all different colors, so I just sprayed that with the Rust-Oleum from Lowe's, or the Rust-Oleum paint. I think it took 1.5 gallons to do the roof, but to make it all look nice. And then just T111 with paint to match the house. We really like the paint color of our house, blue and white. So yeah, I wouldn't change anything about out here. As you can see, there's an orca on the top here. My wife and I decided that there was a big space up there that needed to be filled. So she cut it out with a jigsaw and painted it. And that's what she loves doing, is painting. So as I mentioned, she has, her Instagram is nautical chart, and she does all sorts of wildlife paintings like that. So she loved putting the orc up there, and then we actually put a humpback whale on our main house. So just something to do on a Saturday afternoon. A lot of people like it a lot. I think it adds a lot to the front of the house. Every time I'm in it, I'm proud of it, and I just see our work that we put into it and stuff. So I plan on living tiny indefinitely. We love sharing our house with other people in the summer, and as long as the market's good, then we'll probably live tiny every summer. I mentioned that we're outside of Seward, Alaska, and for anybody seeing that's not in Alaska or hasn't been to Alaska, I would highly recommend coming to visit. And I do work for Major Marine Tours here in Seward. We do glacier and wildlife trips, which are amazing. If you haven't done one, you need to do one. We've got all sorts of trips to go to the glaciers and see the whales, so all that's on majormarine.com. If you ever do come to Seward and want to stay in our tiny house, we can make that work too for nightly rentals. And you can just find that on VRBO. I think it's called Cherrywood Lane Getaway, I think is what we call our nightly rental. So, but yeah, please come to Alaska and come visit what we have to offer up here, and enjoy living tiny.